If you are a diehard Browns fan, no matter what, and are not throwing the towel in on this team, then join the channel today because we're not going anywhere. I would say Browns fans waking up today probably experienced their worst Monday since the Sunday after going 0-16 because it feels like the Browns don't even know what direction they are headed, not just for this season, but beyond this season. But I want to unpack everything from yesterday. I want to talk about the players and the fans going at it with one another, what the Browns do for the rest of 2024. What do they do beyond 2024? What's Deshaun Watson's future with this team, if there's any future at all in Cleveland? I don't want to leave a single stone unturned. So let's start by going in a rough chronological order of what happened yesterday. And that is Browns fans celebrating the injury. I understand that Deshaun Watson, despite what Myles Garrett said, has not been an upstanding model citizen, but I do not believe that people should cheer after he ruptures his Achilles. To me, I think that just dehumanizes the people on the field, and we just look at them as gladiators that can get injured no problemo. You have any idea the pain of tearing your Achilles? Like that alone, if you were standing on the field next to him, you would not cheer, and you would not boo in a positive way for your own righteous doing. So I do not agree whatsoever with Browns fans cheering for Deshaun Watson's injury. Now, I can understand that being at a sporting event and watching a sporting event on TV are two very different experiences. Like I went to the Tennessee-Florida game a few weeks ago. Florida's quarterback Graham Mertz tore his ACL. I had no idea he tore his ACL until after the game was over. Because when you're at a game like that, you don't get the same level of information that you do when you're watching on your couch and you have the ability to get replay via the TV broadcast. They don't put replay of a guy tearing his Achilles on the Jumbotron. So for anyone that didn't know initially what happened because they weren't focusing completely on Deshaun Watson's lower leg in that specific moment in time, and then quickly adjusted their tempo or adjusted their tune once the cart came out and it was evident that this was a serious injury, I've got no issue with that. But for those of you that stood by cheering and booing just because you have the right to do so, these are human beings. And listen, I know that Deshaun Watson has not been a fan favorite since day one with this team. But I still don't think that gives people a pass to cheer for him rupturing his Achilles. So that's the first thing I have on my mind when it comes to Browns fans celebrating the injury. The other thing I have in my mind is I think a lot of people are doing it when it's convenient for them. Deshaun Watson suffered a season-ending injury last year. I don't remember last November seeing the same amount of happiness by some people online over it. What's the difference? The difference is this year he's not playing as well as he was last year when he got injured. Last year when he got injured, it was after an awesome second-half performance and a comeback win over the Ravens. This year, it's after our team started 1-5. So to me, for those of you that claim, I'm happy Deshaun Watson got injured because of all the sexual assault cases against him. Were you happy last year when he got injured? No, because the Browns were playing well and Watson was playing well. So you're picking a time that it's convenient for you. And I can somewhat, even as backwards as it sounds, understand because as sports fans, this is the entertainment industry. If you are not being entertained and 1-5 is not entertaining, then you have every right to kind of move the goalposts as you see fit because that's what this is, an entertainment industry. But don't give me this lecture about how much you care about Deshaun Watson's past and the sexual assault allegations and whatnot when you didn't care about those issues last year. So I'm not going to listen to anyone who goes down the path of this year I care a lot more about it, but last year I didn't care a lot about it because we were really good when Watson got hurt. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Second, what happened after the game. Browns players speaking to the media in the locker room after the game, and a handful of players going at the throats of Browns fans for their reaction to Deshaun Watson's injury. We saw Myles Garrett, Greg Newsome, Jameis Winston all be very outspoken about fans booing, celebrating, cheering, Watson going down, right? Greg Newsome called it bullshit, said it in his tweet, said it in his interview. We have Jameis Winston giving a very Jameis Winston-esque monologue for about 2 minutes about Deshaun Watson going down. And here's the thing with Jameis I want to get on really quickly. A lot of you guys wanted Jameis Winston to be this team's starter for weeks now. But the moment Jameis Winston says something you don't agree with, now you don't like Jameis at all. Guys, I've got news for you. Jameis, his background has not changed over the last couple of weeks. Jameis Winston is not an upstanding model citizen if you are using the same things you apply to Watson as you do to Winston. Winston also settled a sexual assault lawsuit against him. Winston got suspended 3 games for groping an Uber driver in Minnesota, in Arizona. So you guys didn't care about any of that stuff for Winston a few weeks ago when you wanted him to start over Watson. But now that he's saying something you don't agree with, now you're going to bring up everything from the past about Jameis that you don't like. Where was that same energy a few weeks ago? And then Myles Garrett, who I think said a lot of fair and accurate things. The issue with Garrett's statement was he slipped in Watson, who has been a model citizen for all of college and much of the pros. Could have done that part. Because that part right there just completely wiped away a lot of really fair and understandable things that Garrett said. But now only people only look at that 1-2 sentence stretch of saying Watson's been a model citizen. That's not true. He has not been a model citizen. So, unfortunately for Garrett, he had a lot of good, but just 2 sentences of bad wiped away everything he said. But to be honest, when it comes to this dispute of Browns fans have every right to be upset and screw the players because the Browns fan base has been put through so much turmoil and BS, we don't deserve to get chewed out by the players like this. I understand the players' viewpoint. I mean, players are always the first to say no one wants to win more than they do. And sometimes I feel like as a fan, I kind of feel BS on that because players come and go, but fans are always here for the same team. So when this guy is off the team in 1 to 2 seasons, how much did he really care? But at the end of the day, they are still putting their body through an absolute wrecking ball every single week for the entertainment that is the National Football League. So when they see one another competing, practicing and training and putting their body through a gauntlet every single Sunday, and then one of their players or one of their teammates goes down with a brutal injury, not just any injury, but an injury that could end a career because that's kind of the magnitude of an Achilles injury, I don't blame them for lashing out when they're seeing their fan base root on the demise and the failure and the injury of one of their teammates that they have spilled blood, sweat, and tears over for a long time. I get why they'd be frustrated in that moment. And I know that at the end of the day, as a player, it's never a good look no matter what happens if you go at it after the fans because those are the guys that are paying your salary. And the NFL, like going to an NFL game is like stupid expensive. But I don't blame the players for feeling frustrated and bitter and upset in that moment, directed at those fans that were cheering for Deshaun Watson's injury. Because those fans are not at practice. Those fans truly, like, I don't have any idea what it's like to take a hit from an NFL linebacker. But I can't imagine it feels very good. More to get to in just a second here, but I do want to give a quick shout out to our wonderful sponsor today, which is Mando. Today's show is sponsored by Mando. Mando is a whole body deodorant safe to use anywhere on your body. It was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. Mando whole body deodorant is powerful enough for the toughest body odor, but gentle enough to use everywhere else, allowing you to put Mando on the family jewels without any worry because Mando is aluminum-free, baking soda-free, cruelty-free, dye-free, and it's vegan. I didn't know that even existed. But I love having Mando at my desk, so when I walk to work, I've got it waiting for me to kick any bad odor I worked up during my walk out the door. Mando is offering new customers $5 off their starter pack at shopmando.com with promo code CHAT. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, I got a discount code to help you guys get hooked up on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code CHAT. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you use code CHAT at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Third thing I want to tackle today. What is the plan for the rest of the season? Like, where do the Browns kind of go from here for the rest of 2024? The short answer is next man up, right? Not a whole lot different than last year. So, who is the next man up? Dorian Thompson-Robinson or Jameis Winston? DTR initially thought maybe the Browns told him, hey, can you just head to the locker room because we only can use Jameis if you get injured? But shame on me, he did suffer a legit finger injury. Browns are getting an MRI on it, and I'm sure we'll get some level of update from Stefanski today, so stay tuned for that. Or you can go with Jameis Winston. If both are healthy, I think Stefanski should pick Jameis just because even though it's not fair to DTR to make a full decision after coming off the bench cold, Winston came off the bench equally as cold as DTR, and I thought even though it wasn't a very big sample size and it was somewhat garbage time, he still looked better than DTR did. But I also think it is worth noting that Jameis Winston, I don't think from a quarterback standpoint, is the savior Browns fans hope and think he is. Is he entertaining with his pregame rituals? Hell yeah, he is. Is he always a fun soundbite? Most of the time, for most people, outside of some people thinking yesterday. But yeah, there is a lot of like entertainment factor surrounding Jameis. On the field wise, I'm not very high on Winston. The guy has 10 starts in the last 5 years. I think if he was truly that talented, at some point another team would have given him a shot. But he kept going back to New Orleans to be the backup. And even when he came back from his ACL injury 4 years ago, they bypassed him for Andy Dalton. They really think Andy Dalton was going to be a future of that franchise? No. But clearly the coaching staff saw enough of Dalton over Jameis in practice to go, if we want to save our jobs, we got to start Dalton. So, plan for the rest of 2024, I think it's same as last year. The only difference is you're 1-6 right now instead of what they were last year when Deshaun went down. So, it's not going to be a fun rest of the season. They are probably only going to win 4 games max. I mean, their schedule is not going to get any easier. They have only played 1 AFC North game. They have 2 against the Ravens, 2 against the Steelers. They got the Chiefs ahead of them. It's going to be a dogfight. And this team showed us last year how resilient they were, but maybe they kind of have ran out of fuel. And at 1-6, it's going to be tough to get up every single Sunday. So, who do you think should be the starting quarterback for the rest of the season? DTR or Jameis Winston? I'd go with Jameis. I think he gives you a better shot of winning, but I can understand that DTR can give you an inside look of maybe a long-term quarterback since that's probably not going to be Winston. However, I think at this point, we've had a pretty good look at DTR, and I don't feel like he is franchise quarterback material. Fourth, what's next for Deshaun Watson? I wouldn't be surprised if Deshaun Watson somehow, some way, walks away from the Cleveland Browns. I mean, just go through it with me for a moment here. He's made a lot of money. Now, maybe he hasn't used that money very well. Maybe he needs to stay on the team to continue to get checks from Jimmy Haslam. Possible. But he suffered a torn ACL in college, torn ACL his rookie year with the Texans, broke a bone in his shoulder last year, ruptures Achilles, worst of all this year. 4 major injuries. He has a fan base that hates him. They cheer when he gets injured. And he should have a lot of money in the bank. I would think there's a chance that Watson, once he kind of lets the dust settle and he gets the surgery done, he may decide, I don't ever want to play for the Cleveland Browns again. Now, how can you orchestrate that? Well, you could request a trade, but no one's going to trade for you, so get that out of your mind. You could ask to be released. I don't think the Browns would release him under his current contract because they don't want to take on all that dead money. He could retire, and maybe the Browns, like when Andrew Luck retired, pay out the rest of his salary. So it's kind of like a, hey, let's just both go our separate ways. He could agree to have his contract ripped up so the Browns can release him without taking on all that guaranteed money and the dead cap hit so that he can get a fresh start elsewhere. And if the only way he can get a fresh start elsewhere is if he agrees to rip up his contract, and if he'd rather do that than get money, then he could go down that route. I doubt it because that's a lot of money, and I know everyone is probably at this point in the comment section making some pun about, I can think of 118 million reasons why he wouldn't want to do that. But I'm not in the brain of Deshaun Watson. You aren't either. We have no idea what his true priorities are, and if he just refuses to ever play for the Browns again after going out to a bunch of boos, who knows what's next for him in Cleveland. We did get, as Mary Kay pointed out, an update on his Achilles injury, which is, by the way, officially season ending. We already knew that, though. He's doing the speed bridge procedure, or exploring the speed bridge procedure. That's what Aaron Rodgers did, and Rodgers was able to return to practice at the end of the 2023 season. So Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles last year right around this time. He opened up week 1 as the starter for the Falcons. He wasn't even on the PUP list at all during training camp. He was a participant during OTAs and minicamp. So Kirk Cousins, who's 6 years older than Deshaun Watson, was able to make a full recovery for day 1 of training camp after suffering an Achilles tear a little bit later than Watson did. So I think there is a good chance that Deshaun Watson, if he does not decide to leave town, will be healthy when training camp opens up again and it's business as usual. But I do think there is a remote chance that we might have seen the last of Deshaun Watson if he lets his emotions kind of dictate what he wants to do next. And if he decides, I don't ever want to play here, this has been a disaster, no one has liked me, I get booed when I run out of the tunnel at home, I get booed when I get carted off the field, I refuse to play another down for the Cleveland Browns. I don't know what they do next, but that's not a 0% chance in my mind. Fifth and final thing I want to conquer. Do the Browns draft a quarterback now? I don't believe that Deshaun Watson's injury makes them a lock to take a quarterback in round 1. Like I just said, Kirk Cousins showed, Aaron Rodgers showed, older quarterbacks that you can come back from an Achilles injury with modern medicine pretty quickly. Not going to be a one-size-fits-all. Everyone's different. Everybody is different. But generally speaking, Watson being younger than those guys, that means his body is going to heal quicker. That's just basic anatomy. And Watson, theoretically, should be ready to roll around the start of next season like Cousins and like Rodgers. But if the Browns end up getting a very, very high draft pick, and right now they are slated to have the 3rd overall draft pick, and there is a quarterback that they fall in love with, they may not be able to pass on that guy. Now, the way the NFL draft order works, by the way, after just your overall record, the first tiebreaker is strength of schedule. So the Patriots, Panthers, and Browns all have a 1-6 record, but what's separating them is the Patriots have an easier schedule and are still worse than other teams. So if you have an easy schedule and you have a bad record, you're going to get earlier in the draft. So that's how the NFL draft tie-breaking order goes. But I ultimately think Watson is likely going to be your starter next year when healthy if he decides to come back and play for the Browns. If they fall in love with a quarterback like Cam Ward in the draft process and they are on the clock and he is available, then that entire plan might go out the window. But I could see the Browns going, look at the last 4 quarters before Watson got hurt. They did the same thing last year when he got hurt. They looked at the way he went out and what he was doing right before his injury, and they made a lot of conclusions based on that sample size. And the sample size I could see Jimmy Haslam and Andrew Berry focusing on is Deshaun Watson's last 4 quarters were the 4 best quarters of his 2024 season. So we're just going to let him rehab, and we're going to reset, and we're going to get back in the draft, and we're going to make our first overall pick count. They might even trade back a little bit to stockpile some more picks. And they're going to say confidently, we believe in Deshaun Watson coming back from this injury and being ready to be our starter in 2025. Is that going to go over well with the fans? Absolutely not. No, it is not. Do I think it's the best course of action? No, I think they should do every single bit of research to explore every quarterback possibility. But I could see Jimmy Haslam going, the way I look at it is, I spent $230 million on this quarterback, and he was playing pretty well before he got injured. So why not just pick up where he left off and bring him back next year? Because I already spent all this money on this quarterback that you guys wanted. Looking at you, Andrew Berry, and I think Kevin Stefanski, although somehow he has somewhat been able to separate himself from Barry and Haslam in their pursuit for Watson. So how many wins for the 2024 Browns? Sitting at 1-6. I'll go 4. You find 3 more wins. Pick up 1 division win. You need to find 2 more. I think they're talented enough. And once all this kind of gets behind them, we saw last year they bounced back after Watson going down. So I'll say 4 wins. Before we sign off, I do want to show some love to the Brown and Orange Club. Tim Green, Mike Dibble, Jeremy Stallman, Slow But Sure, David Botner, Jared Brandt, James Harper, Papa T, Joseph DePorte, Mike, Ray Bidding, Dr. No, Eli Green, John Porter, Scorpion Max T, Jacob Bate, Drunken Honky, and Pistol Slothly. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. If you want to get added to the club, hang out with us during our watch parties, which are not going anywhere, by the way. I'm not packing up shop. And $50 super chat will add you to the club to get shout outs all season long. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's episode. I appreciate everyone for watching. If you enjoy the content, make sure to like the video, subscribe, leave a comment, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys later.